I have started some interesting discussions by uploading a few videos about socialism versus capitalism. The objections that I get from young people is that they are looking for a third way. Socialism is not recognized as a solution, and capitalism has many, many flaws. I agree. There is a third alternative. Socialism is inherently dysfunctional for reasons that I have described in some other of my videos. And socialism is not the solution to capitalism's problems. But let me explain why you get to that third way of doing things through capitalism. Capitalism is the path to this new third approach. I realize that my argument confronts three hurdles. First to consider is that the language that we choose is a fundamental choice. The first obstacle that I have to overcome is that the language that we choose to overcome these hurdles en route to a better, more just and fair, and a free society is a fundamental choice. If you invoke economics, you're dead. If you invoke law, you're dead. If you invoke political science, you are dead. If you invoke Marx or Bernie or Warren or Maduro or Castro, you are dead on arrival. As I said in a previous video, the language that we need to get us out of the woes of capitalism and socialism, for those who still believe in socialism, is not law, it's not economics, it's not political science, it is cybernetics, and more specifically, management cybernetics. If you start blabbering about decentralized networks or about computer networks or computer systems, you are most certainly gonna mess things up. Whoever assumes the responsibility to trace the path towards a solution for a better society does not have the right to get it wrong. Not when we know what we know now. Okay? The second hurdle I must overcome and convince people is that we cannot get to the third solution and start society from scratch. We have to begin where we are at right now. Why? Because people have mental models in their head, and these mental models are very hard to get rid of. These are memes that live there and fertilize other people and then get feedback about how good they are. And this sets a peer group pressure against change. The diversity of mental models produces inaction. First of all, people don't listen. If they listen, they don't understand. And if they understand, they don't do anything about it. Nobody will join you. They'll let others try it first. That's the human response. People are afraid of change. You can be certain about that. Now, this is another manifestation of the problem that I already mentioned about not complying with the law of requisite variety. People are transducers, and there's a limited amount of channel capacity that goes through them. If they have not studied this new language and are not familiar with the terms, they simply will not even hear the words you're saying. This means that you have to recognize that what you want to change is the nation state. That is what you are dealing with, not the government and not just the people, but both, the whole package. That's what you have to change. You have to change people all the way up through businesses and organizations of NGOs and everything, all the way up to the nation state. It is a system, and it requires that the change envelop the whole system. Otherwise, whatever you don't include is going to come back and get you. Political systems, legal systems, economic systems are ultra-stable systems. What does ultra-stable mean? It means that they are capable of counteracting perturbations that were not even considered in the design. That is, they turn out to be smarter than the guys that put them together. This is what ultra-stability is all about, and it develops on its own. All these feedback loops reasserting themselves all the time. This is why it's very difficult to change people's mentality. This is why it's very difficult to change laws, create new institutions. There's a lot of resistance to change. Machiavelli thought about this more than 500 years ago, and he said, change is always difficult because those that envision the change have no one to support them. People will stay in the sidelines and see what happens. So you are running against this lack of enthusiasm on behalf of those that you think you want to help. It's a tough game. So now you realize you have to coordinate the law with the political parties and the business owners. Everything is part of the package. And if you're doing this, you will notice that your holistic solution has become split into changing the law, changing the businesses, changing the politics, changing the economy. And you are now totally uncoordinated. So this is the reason why the language that puts it all together is management cybernetics, and the viable system with all its cybernetic laws and principles. It is management cybernetics that subsumes all these different approaches into one single approach and one single language. If you do not know it, you are doomed. You will not be an agent of change. You will be part of the problem. The system you want to change goes all the way, as I said, from the citizens all the way to the nation state and whatever is in between them. And then you will notice that just a very few people are leaders, a lot of people are followers, and most of the people are just bystanders. They do nothing. Most of them just do not care. Now, given that the current situation, the current system is capitalist, any mention of socialism is going to be counterproductive. People will be switched off and they will offer a lot of resistance. You don't want socialism. You don't want to mention socialism. You are looking for a third way, which is neither the capitalism we have right now, nor some crazy socialism, communitarian idea. The third obstacle I see is that we have to convince people, or I have to convince people, I have to convince you that socialism is totally dysfunctional and that it is capitalism that is better equipped to serve as a stepping stone towards this new state of affairs, this new society which is more fair, more just, and free. So what I'm saying is that the ideal system that we want is going to come when we get rid of the obsolete capitalist systems or subsystems that are in place right now, and that their reason for being there has long become totally useless. If you go to the Constitution and study the Constitution and you look at the assumptions that the Founding Fathers made on how they set it up, you will understand how many things are really obsolete. Why does Congress session just part of the year? Because of the climate, because they travel in horse carriages, and so on. There are many, many structural processing of information that dates to 230 years ago. There is no reason to continue doing that. And those are the things that if we change them, we can make a new, more modern, capitalist society without the negative parts of capitalism. For instance, let's look at the representative democracy. Let's look at the methods we use for voting. And let's start thinking of ways in which we can disintermediate many government functions and turn them over directly to the people. We need more involvement, more participation, and we need much more self-organization. This is what will change from the capitalism we have right now to a better, more free, and prosperous system. Trying to jumpstart a socialist system from scratch is madness. Now, don't get me wrong. The viable system model says that it is possible to create and run a socialist system. Are you surprised by me saying this? Well, it is true, but there's a big, big thing that it needs to be fixed. You need perfect cohesion among all the members. And you know what perfect cohesion means? It means that everybody has to be a saint. Now, the founding fathers of the United States discussed this, and they said, we are not a nation of saints. We will never be a nation of saints. And we should make laws assuming that people are not saints. This is why they decided to create the balance of powers, the separation of powers, and all these checks and balances into the Constitution. When they did so, they were unaware that they were designing a viable system that maps perfectly with the theoretical viable system that Stafford Beer found exists in everything that is alive in nature. So the Founding Fathers got it right because they knew they were not going to deal with saints. They were going to deal with citizens, ordinary citizens. Now, the equivalent problem in cybernetics is the problem that Ross Ashby discovered about the brain. The brain is able to produce good decisions, organizing itself so that it can use very defective components, unreliable neurons. So there you have it. In the Constitution, the balance of powers, and in the brain, the two sides of the brain, the specialization of the frontal lobe, and all the rest, the amygdala and all the rest of the components of the brain create a reliable brain out of unreliable components. By the way, this also explains why socialism is prone to become dictatorial, because the rigid framework cannot adapt, cannot reorganize itself, and then the only way out is, as I said before, to cancel variety, cancel freedoms, and push everybody to follow orders. And this is why we don't want anything related to socialism. It does not have requisite variety. And if capitalism is missing requisite variety, is incapable of recognizing several things that are hurting, that are humiliating for human beings, we can fix it by increasing participation in setting the rules and making things work, but not by canceling freedoms, not by playing with liberty and free will. Now, if someone wants to run a social experiment, okay, go ahead, good luck. Go and find a community that is willing to run this experiment, and you tell us how it went. I hope you are going to find a community which is all saints. Everybody cooperates, no sinners, no criminals, no problems. Everybody knows their job, everybody loves everybody, and it is the perfect society. If you think you can find that, then go do it, and you can come back and claim the title for having a perfect socialist regime. But in absence of saints, the Bible system model says that cohesion is key to getting things done. And you have to do through organization and through the applying the control laws correctly to get it right. If you don't stand the chance of creating a fruitful society. So, in conclusion, capitalism can take us to the third solution by starting by fixing the broken components of capitalism. I would say, in order of importance, shift from representative democracy to an InfoSet guided specialized knowledge democracy, and with much more participation and self-organization. Thank you for your attention. I hope to see you soon in another chat like this one. Thank you.